This is TWiT.
Actually, I wanted to talk to Mike Elgin because yesterday you tweeted, "Thanks, California, you just put me out of work."
Yes.
Are you out of work again?
Oh.
Okay, so I heard about this, of course, where I learned about everything on a TWiT podcast. I was listening to TWiT.
AB5.
Speak in Enterprise Tech.
Yes, and they were saying, oh, there's this new thing that's supposed to bring Uber drivers and Lyft drivers into the realm of unionized, civilized mankind. And by the way, they're not going to let freelance writers submit more than 30-something.
35.
35 per year. And I'm
publisher.
like, are you out of your mind? Like, that's what I do for a living.
Signed into law in September, it becomes the law of the state on January 1.
Yeah.
Among a lot of other laws, including the new California Privacy Bill, the IoT Security Bill. The legislature got very active this year.
Well, just thank God weed is legal because this is really
You're gonna need
stressful.
it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to speak here on behalf of the state legislature. My wife, I'm an employer.
Yes.
My wife is an employer. She hates the California state legislature.
Oh,
she
good.
says it's making it hard for employers. But the theory behind this is that a lot of businesses will use independent contractors to avoid paying benefits.
Yes.
And so they designate you. You're writing, let's say you're a columnist for Computer World. You're writing a column every week, 52 columns a year. Computer World should hire you as an employee, but they avoid that by saying, well, he's an independent contractor. So California is saying, no, you and Uber drivers and all these other people need to be employees, right?
Wrong. The problem is that this is part of the fantasy land interpretation where if you have a bunch of freelancers and you illegalize freelancing, then they'll just hire them all. No, those people just go out of work.
Right. Well, I'll be honest. Lisa's saying, we're moving to Vegas.
Well, that's what I would do.
That's the other thing that happens. The business moves.
It is cheaper.
Yeah,
you lose
exactly.
the businesses.
That's right. That's right. And so, I actually have two publishers that I submit more than 35 columns a year to each.
Why 35? Where did that number?
I don't know. They're just making this stuff up.
Lorena S. Gonzalez, who's an assemblywoman in San
Dun,
Diego,
dun, dun.
has actually been
She
very
created
active.
this bill.
She helped create this bill, and she said that apparently that they had talked to some freelance writers, journalists, whatever, and
We talked to people.
Yeah, but the problem was, she clearly didn't look into bloggers and just kind of the vast amounts of us who make money this way.
This is the scientific method she used.
Yes.
Well, you're right. One a week, that'd be 52. Split it in half, 26.
They went based on columnists, so they split it in half for columnists
26,
doing
and then the
column a
freelancer
week.
said, well, that's kind of low. All right, we'll make it 35.
Yeah, she said it was a little arbitrary. She admitted
It's
it
a
was
lot
arbitrary on
arbitrary.
Twitter.
Yeah, but this is the second attack on my line of work that has occurred in the last couple of weeks. So Zuckerberg decided that, Facebook, I should say, I shouldn't personalize it. Facebook decided they weren't going to fact check political speech, which got all the press, and also opinion columns. I'm like, wait, you're not going to fact check opinion columns?
We didn't even mention
Slap
that.
opinion on any piece of fake news junk, and that's fine. And what does that say about opinion writers? And then this thing is...
We'll get back to AB5, but this is more tech.
Yeah.
What it says is not about opinion writers. It says that Facebook doesn't want to weigh in on what the truth or fallacy of a statement.
Because they're morons.
No,
columns are based on facts that are checkable. This is like, who doesn't know that? It's like, they're not fact.
But if I say in my opinion column, Facebook is evil, you might say that's a fact.
But, it's...
You might not.
Okay, but nobody says that. There's no such thing as a column that says that and doesn't go, to say why.
Well, no, that's what opinion columns do. But and I think the same thing with political ads. In fact, the FTC, and this is what Zuckerberg brought up, does not require that in broadcast. You can lie in a broadcast ad. The FTC requires truth in advertising with the exception of political ads. And so Facebook's just doing what the FCC and the FTC do.
But my point is that you have a reported article that's not an opinion column, and then you have an opinion column. They should be based on the same standard. So, for example, if either one of them says Facebook is evil, that's not really... That's just a claim.
Harmless. That's harmless.
That's just a claim.
It's not even libelous. I could say you're evil.
But if they
it's
say
not
they're
libelous.
sacrificing puppies by the thousands, that's a
provable fact.
Provable fact. Well, it's not a fact, so it's like you can't be proved.
Or a provable lie.
But my point is that the biggest problem is that they're not fact-checking anyone if they say that opinion columns aren't going to be fact-checked, because every Macedonian teenager is going to say, oh, it's just like everybody does, oh, it's parody.
But the good news is they won't be able to get a job in California.
That's the good news, right? Exactly. So we'll all be out of work, and so yeah, no, but it's just ignorant, and it's extremely sort of a klutzy way to just. I spent decades, literally, Leo, decades, getting to the point where I can be a freelance writer with a couple of weekly
you
columns.
want to travel internationally. You want to spend time overseas. You don't want a job with
But even if I
World.
didn't, like, even if I wasn't nomadic, you know, it's like I've made a lot of sacrifices to get to the point where I can be a freelance, have my own company, right? This is the American
Seth, is this
dream.
going to impact what you do at your blog? Because that means you can't. Freelancers, you're going to have to limit how many contributions they make a year.
Not yet, but that has more to do with the amount of funding that I have than anything else.
Just hire them all.
Right, with the funding I don't have.
But if you were The Verge, this would be an issue
well,
for you.
I mean, what's really interesting to me about this is that there's a legitimate reason for state legislatures to look at things like the car sharing economy and the gig economy and stuff like that, and say, hey, look, you are doing an end run around our laws. These people need to be fully employed. Stop doing this in the way that you're doing it. There's also a very legitimate reason to allow journalists to be freelancers and and to allow them freedom of work and freedom to be able to move from publication to publication as they see fit. How it is, I mean, I'm still boggled by this law. I read about it when it came out in the in the SPJ, Society of Professional Journalists was has been working on this, and I'm still boggled by how this thing got passed and the way that it got passed, and why, of all the laws that Newsom decided to not sign, he looked at this and said, "Oh, sure, YOLO, this is fine." It makes no sense to me, and it's so confusing as to why it was able to get through in the way that it is. There's very good reasons for why journalism is set up the way it is now, and it has a lot to do with the lack of stability and lack of unions in journalism jobs. And there's there's very bad reasons for why the gig economy is the way it is. And trying to fix them both with, the world's largest ball peen hammer seems like a really bad idea.
You're a freelancer, Flo. Right?
I am a freelancer. I am.
You're a freelancer at TWiT, by the way.
I am. Yes.
And you're on more than 35 shows a year.
Till January 1st, she's a freelancer.
That's.
I don't know if I don't even know if it applies to podcasts.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
I don't know if it applies to broadcasting.
Apparently it doesn't, at least according to
I didn't even think about that being on
my imagination.
Anyway, I'm gonna keep coming in until you guys lock the door on me. But I'm in my part right now. My husband said to me this morning, because we were talking about it. He's like, you know what? You got to go do your Democratic thing and go get signatures to get this amended. So being that I'm here in California, I'm stuck here. I'm building a family here, and I've been here all my life. Like, I'm going to have to go do some grassroots campaigning to get this amended, because yelling at Lorena on Twitter is not going to get it changed at this point.
She's being yelled at a lot. A
lot, which I completely understand, and absolutely, of course, that's what's going to happen. But I have to do something, and being that I live in the state and I have the privilege of having a husband that has gets benefits for us, I should go find some time to do some grassroots campaigning and go the old diplomatic way.
It's also the case. We shouldn't be too naive about the political process.
Yeah.
This is, it goes into effect January 1st, but then the state has to try to enforce it. Then it goes to the courts. There's a long road before this actually gets enforced in January.
I don't, and I haven't studied it very closely. I heard about it on TWiT and haven't had time to study it. But is it when the company is in California? Is it when the employee is in California? I don't know.
Employee in California.
The employee in California. Well, I just moved to Paris.
I'll tell you who it affected is Ant Pruitt, who is a freelancer for Tech Republic. But as soon as he moved here, Tech Republic said, "Sorry, we can't employ you any longer, because you now live in California."
Yeah.
And so there's definitely an impact. Yeah. And it's an impact on a lot of the people that I know and we use. And the tech industry is full of freelancers.
It feels to me like a creepy end run around the First Amendment, because essentially what they're doing is they're saying, yes, oh, wow, there's this rise of independent journalism. How can we stop that? How can we suppress it? And
should journalists be exempt? And maybe this is just for Uber and Lyft drivers? I wonder how Uber and Lyft drivers
The idea
feel about
was to actually, the idea was supposed to be to protect us,
Right.
from what I understand, to make sure that if we are working this much for a certain
should get
publisher, we should be considered an
benefits.
employee. So, you know, if TWiT wants to make me an employee.
the problem is that who am I going to be an employee for? I write
Yeah.
one. So I write for a new publication called Insider Pro, right? I'm and I write for Security Intelligence. I write for Fast Company, and I write for some other publications. Are they all supposed to hire me? Is one of them supposed to hire me, and I never write for the other one? So they're basically deciding where my voice is heard as a journalist.
Right.
It's outrageous. It's outrageous.
And it comes in, and it's important to note for people who aren't aware that this comes at a time when journalism continues a very, very bad downward slide in the number of people employed on a regular basis as journalists. There are 7,200 fewer journalists in the U.S. this year than there were last year, employed journalists. People are being forced into marketing positions, into PR positions with at a shocking rate, and it's a real problem for the business of journalism and for the important role that journalism does play in our modern dialogues.
Somebody in the chat room, and I missed the name, I went by quickly, made a good point. I actually work for my own company, and
You're
and I
an
have
LLC.
Yeah, I'm a yes. Yeah. Based in California, idiotically enough. And so I actually have a contractual relationship from company to company, technically. So it's not about me personally, but it's...
If that loophole, though, is widely used, why wouldn't every Uber and Lyft driver do it? Then the legislature will throw that one out.
It's funny, in Mexico...
that looks like you're hiding.
In Mexico City,
freelance status.
Uber is fantastic, but the driver is never the person who owns the car.
Right.
So the person who owns the car hires a driver.
Right.
And
That's
just
how
how it works
taxis
there.
are.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, you mean Uber and Lyft are taxis?
Kind of.
Did I say that?
Whoops.
Kind of.
Are they trying not to be taxis?
Well, they don't want to be considered taxis, but
you're just carpooling.
right, just carpooling.
That's what they say?
It's ride sharing.
And here's the
build is ride sharing.
And here's the question. I understand the theoretical thing. Somebody wants to give a ride. Somebody wants a ride. So they put them together, and that's all it is. And that's clearly not what it actually is. But is being a taxi driver this amazing job where they have great health care and stuff like? Does anybody know if
No.
Well, I think
it seems like they're scraping by?
yeah.
I have two hats to wear because I'm an employer and an employee. And I've on the one hand, I want to be very laissez-faire and just say, well, if there are bad jobs in the world, you don't have to take them. And there are people who want those bad jobs. You should allow them to take those jobs. Right?
People love being freelancers.
Yeah.
Right? They're not
Why
freelancers
should the
because they can't
state
get a
weigh in on
job.
this?
It's like ridiculous.
Well,
Is there
so-
widespread exploitation? Is that the problem?
Well, there
There are
in the
some,
taxi
there
industry,
are,
sure.
There are in
then
the
don't take
journalism
that
too.
job. But then don't
there are
take that
journalism
job.
too. The problem is in journalism, it's a lot harder because people don't know what the market rate is. Sorry, $15 a post.
a career
is
in
not the market
journalism,
rate.
if you're not in broadcast, is a vow of poverty. It's like it's not a great job whether you're
I knew
employed
what I
or
was
not.
getting into when
Well,
I
it's like the
majored
old.
it in
It's
college.
like I probably said this last time. It's like the old joke: the difference between a journalist and a large pizza is the large pizza can feed the family, and it'll be funny until
both
we're
not the
very
dead.
breadwinner
tasty,
for that
though.
reason.
Yeah, right.
But is it the state's job to say, companies, you got to pay these guys? Because I think you're right, Mike. That doesn't mean that they will.
Yeah.
It just makes it harder for everybody.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think in the tech industry, especially, this is important. We know that tech companies have been using freelance and contract employees as ways of getting around people who are otherwise doing 35 plus hours a week of work, especially in low wage or minimum wage jobs. So the intent behind the bill clearly seems to be on the up and up. What worries me is this particular part of it. And it doesn't just affect journalists. It also affects people in Hollywood working on TV shows, working on movies, because a lot of those are freelance. Now some of them have union protection because of what's the union there? Can't remember the name of the union, but the Writers Guild. Sorry, of course. But for others, I mean, this is simply going to force journalists either out of California, or journalists outside of California are going to benefit at our expense.
Let's make it bigger than journalists. Is it, as the San Francisco Chronicle says, is this killing the whole gig economy? Is this bad for everybody who's a gig worker? And is it bad to be a gig worker? Are you being taken advantage of?
It doesn't feel that way right now. I mean, I think that could become the case. Again, I feel like whenever there's opposition to some new version of something, there's all this outrage as if the old version was great. Let me give you a not to change the subject, but like prisons. Like, everybody's against private prisons. They're awful.
Right.
They're awful. How are the public prisons doing? Like, they're awful too. And like,
they lack accountability.
At least nobody's making money on them.
I mean, I'm actually glad you brought that up, because one of the issues here is accountability. You've been freelancing. I mean, I haven't really done a lot of freelance work, because when I left CNET, I founded the Parallax, and this has been going on for 4 years now.
Yeah.
But you've been freelancing a really long time. What rates are you getting paid? You don't have to share, but what, like, compared to how they were, because I've heard from friends of mine who freelance at places where what they got paid for an 800 to 1,000 word piece in 2005 is unchanged from what they got paid for the exact same length piece in 2015.
We're lucky to get 20 cents a word.
So
I mean, so clearly journalists are being taken advantage of, and it's clear that it's it's not good for wages, but it is good for freedom. The difference is that a lot of journalism, especially if you're in tech journalism, you can do from a beach in Thailand. Why are we not all on a beach in Thailand? But
because the sun is the screens aren't there yet. Basically, that's the only
For
reason.
the record, I did not go
pasty,
freelance so that I could travel the world. I went freelance because I left a really, really difficult job, and this was the only thing that I had the opportunity to do to still be able to contribute to my family household.
But this is my point. Very few people go freelance because they can't get a job. They do it because they want to be freelancers. So just in my own.
That's not what Flo was saying.
Yeah,
I know, but
there's no way. I did not have time to find a job. I needed to immediately start making money, and so the wheels just kept on turning, and now I am where I am.
Right.
Still freelancing. It's not to say I haven't been,
But what I'm saying is that you chose to go the freelance route rather than to look for another job route.
I did it out of desperation, but yes.
But you made that choice. What this bill is doing is saying, no, you don't get that choice. You have to do the one you didn't choose.
Yeah.
That's the one you have to do by law. And in my own case, I can make 3 or 4 times as much working as the editor-in-chief of a magazine in New York City that I make as a freelancer. But I choose to be a freelancer for my own reasons. And I don't think it's any of her business whether I make that choice or not. I don't like her forcing me into choices that I've rejected already. It's outrageous.
Well, and there are no protections either if the employer decides not to employ you.
Exactly.
That you're writing over
exactly.
35.
Exactly.
That wasn't taken into consideration. That
that's the next thing to go, because California is an at-will state. Anybody could be fired for any reason, but that could go away. This could become a no longer an at-will, a right-to-work state.
The problem with that is that I'm an adult and I'm not a child, and I don't need a state legislator in San Diego telling me that, oh, I'm not protected, right? So I know what the risks are. I know what the deal is, and I've made my choice. And she's trying to override it.
We employ 20 or 30 freelancers, including you, Flo. In fact, including all of you.
Not me.
Not you. I don't give you any money.
No.
Should
you be?
But no.
Free coffee.
Because then I'd have to.
I mean, I got free water.
If I paid you, I'd have to kill you. Or
seltzer
something.
water.
But I'm thinking of a lot of our shows. I mean, Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley are freelancers. Andy Anako's a freelancer. Renee Ritchie's a freelancer. Almost all our shows, we use freelance hosts. I shouldn't be saying this out loud. We pay each and every one of them and give them fine benefits.
Yes.
I don't think our business would be a very different business if we had to all use staff hosts. There'd be a lot fewer shows and a lot less hosting work.
Seth, do you hire freelancers?
I have in the past, yes.
Okay. But if this goes into effect, and let's say you did have people who are doing weekly columns, for example, would you, as a result of this, hire them and give them full benefits and the whole bit?
One of the...
Or would they just be out of luck?
And I want to be really, really clear about this. One of the greatest pleasures about having started the Parallax is that I've been able to pay very talented journalists, people who are far better at this than I am, very good wages, very good compensation for their stories. If I had ever been in a place where I could hire them outright, I absolutely would have done that.
But I can tell you right now, and I can tell you this is true.
But this
for
law
TWiT.
won't put you in that place.
No.
It'll just
You can't, because you add benefits.
Yeah.
The cost is much higher.
Oh, sure.
And if I had to have 20 or 30 more employees, we wouldn't exist.
But Leo, all those freelancers you talk about have other jobs. They're doing this is a side hustle,
right,
or something like that. So it's like this is the beauty of freelancing is you can diversify your income streams, right? And it's like it's a great.
But there's not a lot of jobs out there for those of us who do want to have full-time jobs too.
Right. That's why freelancing is so great. They're not going to give. They're
That's
not,
why it's-
They're not
yeah.
going
I
to
think
give you a
there's two
job.
sides.
Yeah.
I
They're
think
just.
there's two sides to this.
Exactly.
honestly.
They're
I
not
do.
going to give you a job.
It
They're
should
just
be
going to take
separate
away your
from-
current job.
I understood what California government wanted to do for Lyft and Uber drivers. I was very much in agreement with it as a California voter, but then I saw what it was going to do to my business, and
Right.
I was like, why couldn't you guys just do something separate? So I'm gonna have to go to the grocery store and get signatures.
Yeah. I mean, there.
I need to
for
file an
Look
amendment
for
to this.
Flo out front of
Yes.
the Piggly Wiggly near you.
Yes.